we go. So it's November 6th. We are already in November. And right, another 2 months to go before the year end. My goodness, where does the time go? I'm here leading the call tonight. Mike, as some of you may know, he's in Panama, so I will be leading your call tonight. And what I thought we would talk about tonight, and maybe if you could all mute, that would help. And then when you want to say something, you can unmute yourself. That would be wonderful. What I thought we could talk about tonight is, you know, a lot of times, since also coming from San Antonio or any conference, we talk about how do we communicate with people? How do we reach out, right? And I thought about something, an exercise that we did years ago in when Nick was doing some of the business training, and one of them was about the personality quadrant. Who remember that, right? And this is something I believe that we know, but sometimes we're not too sure exactly of how to do with this, or maybe you're not aware of it. So let me mention this, because when we talk about prospecting is about communicating. It's about being able to relate to other people. It's about making them connect with what we have to offer, and make them see why this is a good thing for them. But how do we know that we really communicate in a language that they understand, right? So we need to understand, first of all, who we are and who are we talking to. Makes sense to everybody? So that exercise of the 4 personality quadrant, and that exercise, and there's many studies out there that will refer to them in different words. But in Niken, at that point in time, we talked about what we call the 4 quadrant personality. One is controller. The second one is the promoter. The third one is the supporter. And the fourth one is the analyzer. Now, as I'm saying those 4 words, controller, promoter, supporter, analyzer, which one are you? Because first we need to know who we are. So then we know how we tend to think, how we tend to communicate. So then we know as well how to, and then who is the person we have in front of us, right? Or the group. Now, the reality is we are of the 4 quadrants, all of us, but we have a dominant. That's just a fact. We have a dominant, and that dominant is what makes us say certain word versus others, is what, there's certain things that make us respond faster than others. So, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a background of that, and then I'll ask everybody to participate, because that is so important. Controller, typically motivation or more of making things happen. It's about performance. It's about status. It's about the outside things that makes us show the success. It's being in control of what they do. Right? The promoter, I think it says it all. It's somebody who loves to have fun. That's the typical, and so that's really important. And it's all about promotion. If I don't promote it well to you, it's not going to connect with you. The supporter is somebody who loves to help, who's there to help. And then the analyzer is the person who wants to know the data. How does it work? And I want to know more, and I want to know. So as I'm saying that, I'm sure you're saying, well, I'm all 4, right? We are all 4, but we have a dominant. So why is that important? Because if I am if I am a controller, I would tend to think more into those words of what motivates me. And what motivates me may be social status, money, performance, those type of things. But if I'm talking to somebody in front of me who's a supporter, who's motivated by helping others, it's not, and I'm not using words that that person is going to connect with. They won't be able to relate to me. So if I'm talking to a supporter who's motivating by helping others, money is usually not the motivation. It's more about making a difference. we tend to put others before ourselves, right? So if I talk to somebody who's more of a supporter profile and I talk to them about all the money that can be made and they can have control and they say, yeah, but that's not me. And I don't see myself in that role. Make sense, everybody? But if I'm talking to a promoter, and what I say to people when I invite somebody, for example, a promoter to an event, and I talk about a meeting, a presentation, something that is serious. Well, a promoter, if you give them a choice about attending a meeting, especially if it's after work on a weekend, or attending an event where they're going to meet people, they're going to enjoy it, then they're going to respond in a very different way. I always say, give a promoter the choice between a meeting and having fun, they'll choose having fun, right? A controller, if you talk to them about making a difference and so on, yes, that's important, but what's in it for me? What will I gain by doing it? So it's important to know that, because too often we tend to talk to others the way that we are versus talking to the other person at their level, with what makes them tick. Does it make sense, everybody? So when we can, think about how do you do your prospecting? Do you tend to have a one things for all, same presentation for all, same technique of connecting for all? And does this work every single time? Probably not, because we need to relate to the person, right? And we tend also to think or to assume that the person we have in front of us is of a certain type. Even more so, by the way, if we worked with them before, if we're their family and friends, but we need to remember, we know them in a certain situation, and in those situations or that type of relationship, they may show up with a certain character, but they may not show up another side of them. So we need to understand. And I will tell you this, when I did that exercise years and years ago, it was actually during what we call the goal training at the time. And very often I was in a group, and when you have, controller wants to have control of a meeting. They want to make things happen. They're the one leading, right? And whether or not others understand or listen to them, doesn't matter. They just go, right? And they may be seen as a little bit assertive, or for others, supporter may find them pushy. And it's not necessarily that they're pushy, they just go. They just go. They tend to have their blinders and they go, right? The supporter will hate hurting others' feeling. So when we invite, for example, let's talk about prospecting. When we talk to somebody and we invite someone to an event or to look at a video, we invite them to look at a weekend. Have you had any point in time had some people who say, yes, I'll look at it. Or yes, I'll come. Oh, I can't make it now. And they keep pushing it and they never show up. They're probably a supporter profile. They will hate to say no to you because they don't want to hurt your feeling. They don't want to hurt anybody's feeling. They're there for you. So for them saying no is too assertive, and they're not going to say it. Right? So if you have somebody who keeps saying no, or they they don't say no. They say yes, maybe, next time, and all of that, but they never do what they say they're going to do, that might be a reason. And that you may then ask yourself, what exactly am I saying to that person that maybe they're not relating to? Or if you're talking to somebody who's a controller and motivated by performance, results, and that type of things, and you're talking to them just about making a difference in the world, but you're forgetting the other side of it, which is, what will I gain from it? How is that going to give me more control, more results, more performance? They're not going to show up because for them, it's not worthwhile their time. Right? A promoter, if it's too serious, come on, I've had enough seriousness at work. I don't want to show up to something that is too serious again, right? So we need to tell them, you know, I want you to come and meet. You're going to see. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. You're going to meet a great group of people. We're making great friends. It's all the social connection. The analyzer is the toughest one, because the analyzer said, give me data. And they never end with question. And unfortunately, we tend to want to answer the question. Whenever somebody tells me, Bernadette, what do you do with analyzer? I say, nothing. That's me. I say, what do you mean nothing? Nothing. Because I know in 99.99% of the time, it's not going anywhere. So if they want data, I know where the data is. I say, I'd be more than happy to forward you the information and the videos, and I know where it is, but I am not going to try to explain it to them, because I know there will always be another question, which is, and how does it work? Whether it's the product, whether it's the business, whether it's the team aspect, there's always be, yes, but, you know, there's something more. There must be something more. And we get exhausted by doing that. Right? I see some people smiling. Obviously, it seems to resonate. So, you know, that's why it's really important. And by the way, I'm talking about prospect, but working with the team is the same. Who do you have on your team? Do you tend to react to work with everybody on your team the same way and talk to them the same way? Or do you adapt to their personality? And by the way, that's why when we do a webinar, an ABC, an expo, this is one of the reasons why we have different personality on stage. Because we cannot relate to everybody in the audience. It's impossible. Nobody can. Because it's age, it's gender, it's personality. But that's why we have different speakers, different age, different profile, different personality. So at least one of them, we're increasing the chance of one of the speakers being able to relate to the audience. That's why it's not about being good at presenting. It's about working all together and putting as many people in front of the people. Does it make sense to everybody? So as I'm saying that, what are maybe the question or the light bulb that are going on, or maybe things that you know, because I'm sure that most of you know that, but maybe you forgot or you are not paying as much attention as you could. Who would like just to say, yes, Suzanne?
It's always a good reminder, and I think many of us who've been around for a while perhaps did Humans Being More with Linda Mitchell. And I have used her example for years about the different personality types based on cars. And so it helps me when I'm speaking with someone based on perhaps how they dress, how they shake your hand, how you interact with them, to help identify how you might be able to invite them to the event, to an upcoming event. So that for me, and I just dug out one of the sheets that she uses, because I've used it so often, to be able to identify who falls into what.
Great. Anyone else?
I'll comment. The other point that's important is who you connect them to for an ABC, because we want all kinds in our organization for that variety, especially to help put events on and so forth. You need all the different kinds of talent, skill mix. So if you're the polar opposite, the analytical with the expressive, or the promoter, and the controller with the supporter, then it's good to really be sure that you connect the right A with them. So, and then you can watch that interaction and really listen and get a lot of information when the right quadrant is relating to them, to see that's where you really can get down to the why a little bit more. Typically the opposite poles aren't too self-revealing to the other person. I found that fascinating. I'd just like to share a story from my corporate experience. There is we called it flexible communicator in goal training, but there's also, and many may be familiar, social styles inventory. Same 4 quadrants, different names, but our executive team, oh my God, it was 6 men and me for 17 years together. And by the 15th year when we went through this, they hired a psychologist. It was really very interesting for those quadrants to be revealed. But one other component we took in the test there was flexibility. And that speaks to the first question that you mentioned. We all have all 4 parts. You know, we all need analytical or we're promotional or whatever times. And so the more flexible a person can become, and I think that was the part of flexible communicator, it was called that, to really realize who you're speaking to, and you still are who you are, but to really understand that other person and try to be more like that. The more flexible we are, then it's easier in teams, especially teamwork once they get on the team because of the different personality types. I think it's very interesting, and I'm glad that you brought it up. And we don't have the goal training anymore, so that could be something that we could add to one of our. You know, we're adding the abbreviated humans being more now, so maybe we should add that flexible communicator tool to one of our management workshops or leadership workshops that we're having.
And one thing that's important to understand is we all have part of those 4 parts. We have a dominant, but the goal is to be as centered as possible. Right? It's really to become as centered as possible, because when we become as centered as possible, we're really able to communicate at a much higher level with everybody. And that's really, really important. So anyone else want to add a comment? No? So, and because of that, you know, because there's so many different style, personality, and different way of reacting, it's also important, for example, when we think about the tools that we're using, what are the tools that will relate to those people? Because also to think there's sometimes one video will fit it all may not be quite right as well, right? Or one tool will fit everybody? Probably not. Because again, we're not really looking at that, you know, is because it shows in the visual, it shows in the printing, everything that who we are. You know, in terms of behavior, the promoter, you know, you're in a room, you know immediately who's a promoter, who's a supporter, who's a controller, and who is an analyzer, just by their body language and their tone of voice and how they behave. The promoter you'll know, because they will be the one who will laugh, who will smile. I mean, they will distract the crowd in a way, which is a good thing. You want that because it brings the fun. The supporter may be very quiet. A lot of time, they're not going to say much. They tend to be that. They're a lot more quiet. The analyzer, they're just watching everybody and they're listening and then they're asking questions. And then the controller may be the one who just may take more of the attention. So when we're using tools, you know, in a prospecting effort, contacting, prospecting, and taking people through the process, become more aware of those personality aspects, because that's going to make us a lot more effective. And working with the team again, because working with somebody who's a promoter is very different than working with somebody who's a supporter. They're not going to move the same pace as well, very often. They're not going to respond to necessarily the goal setting in a very rational way. Really important. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to bring up as well is I've had a number of questions, and not just only me, but a number of the people, Diamond and Roll Diamond, question about tools that are now available, you know, which one do we use and all of that. The beauty is, you know, is first of all, myself, I always say, first of all, let's use tools that are simple and so on, but also that resonate with you. And that to me is, you know, very often I work with people who are cross-line to me, and they ask me, and so I say, first of all, I can give you some advice, but make sure that you follow whatever your upline is doing, because they're the one working with you. So, don't create disconnection or distortion into your communication, because that's not going to suit you, right? So it's really important as well to use that. So in terms of videos, brochures, webinars, and I also said to people is, what is it that also resonates with you? Because if it doesn't resonate with you, you're going to have a hard time promoting it, right? You're going to have a hard time putting your passion and your conviction behind it. That is very, very important. And bottom line is, people, I love, for example, Michelle, because I'm looking at Michelle right now, Michelle is like many of us on this call, is a very passionate person. And I know that if Michelle was talking about something that she doesn't believe in, it would sound awkward. I would feel it. I would see it on her face that she's not behind it. So whatever we're using, it's really important that we use something that we believe in and with that can get behind. And because then it's easy for us to promote, it's easy for us to duplicate, because that also is very important. Any comments, any question on that topic? Very quiet group tonight. All right. So as we are starting, the last 2 months of the year, I don't know about you, but there's some belief out there, not just, and I'm not talking to Pascal, that sometimes the holiday is coming, so everything's going to slow down. Well, whatever we believe is the truth, right? That's the bottom line. I remember years ago, I lived in Canada, in Toronto, and many of you are on the East Coast, and the winter on the East Coast can be really brutal, right? Really brutal. And I remember in Toronto, we had the first snow in October, the last snow at the end of April, 6 months of the year. It was just brutal. And because it's the first time that I lived there, I remember the first year I was there, because I started in Canada, it was in January, something like this. The belief at that time was, in Toronto in the summer, nothing happens because everybody goes away in their cottage. Because our summer is so short. There's no business in the summer. Being trusting and naive, I would say, I believed it the first summer. So guess what? My summer was so slow. I could have gone into the cottage as well myself and disappeared for 2 months. And then fortunately, a month or so, as I said, this is silly. Not 10 millions of people in Toronto are going away in the cottage in the summer. That is not possible. Guess what? I never had another slow summer in Toronto, right? So whatever we believe, we're going to behave accordingly. So do we tend to believe that Thanksgiving is coming, in 3 weeks? Not even, something like this. Now, within 2 weeks, nothing is happening after 2 weeks, right? Because a lot of times say, well, once Thanksgiving hits, forget about it. It's the new year, right? Well, if you believe that, that's exactly how you're going to run your business. Remember, not everybody goes away. And nowadays, I really don't believe it's true. Would people stop working for 4 days during Thanksgiving? Maybe a week, yes. Maybe same in December for Christmas. It depends when it happens. This year, I don't remember. But yeah, people will stop for a little bit. But not for 6 weeks, not for 2 months. Not anymore, because the economy has changed. The economy has changed. So what are we doing from now on that allow us to have really a lot of business? At this time of the year, myself, is Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving for what it represents. And one thing that I said to people, for example, business-wise, I say, give the gift of health. The last 2 months of the year, that's always the campaign that I run. Give the gift of health. And you can expand that in such a way, you know, and so it's meaningful gift. It's plenty of things, you know, and so it's a great time. That's when we're going to meet a lot of people. That's, by the way, a fabulous time to expand our list in a way that is phenomenal. So every opportunity we have to go and attend, you know, whether it's, or you create, and by the way, there's opportunity, we're invited, but don't wait to be invited. Create opportunities to meet people. One thing that I'm doing, for example, at the end of November, I've created an event, and the goal, and we're going to have about 50 people during that event. And it's not DeCan related, but it's all about gratitude. It's about gratitude. It's about really inviting people with whom we have created meaningful relationship, who I appreciate as friends, as families, as customers, and that are not DeCan or outside, and it's all about that, and it's giving and celebrating, and it's going to be a fun event. We're going to have food, we're going to have wine, it's right? Is what are we, and because it's the bonding that is so important. And when people see us for who we are versus what we do, that's when the long-term relationship and business can happen as well. So I highly encourage you, don't wait to be invited. Create your own event. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You just do a potluck. You know, you say you invite a potluck and say, hey, maybe one of you has a clubhouse, but do something, create things like this. It's just amazing. And it's all about acknowledging people, making people seen, because so many people are not seen. And the simple fact we acknowledge them is absolutely fabulous. I've done that a few times. And it's just amazing what happens during those events, because we also have a chance to say thank you to whoever we want. And you hear stories and you hear things. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. It brings us back to why we do what we do. Okay. So I'd love to hear from some of you is what are the ideas that you have that the rest of the group could use that would create opportunities for you to meet people, to gather people, you know, or invite people you've never known in different environments. What have you done that would allow you to build a new list, new relationship? And whether you do it now, but especially at this time of the year for the next 3-4 months, my gosh, there's so many reasons. You could do Thanksgiving or the religious holidays, you know, there's Christmas, there's the New Year, there's the New Year's resolution, and then in February you have, you know, the Valentine, so you can extend Valentine. You know, it's not just for your life partner. It's so much, and there's so many reasons that you could do. So, what ideas maybe do you have? Yes, Michelle.
Thanks, Bernadette. This was a great call. It was a great reminder. Just oddly enough, I was at a wellness expo and they were talking about how to communicate with people based on personalities. So this is kind of cool. Thank you. What I do is twice a year I hold a customer appreciation event, and that's where my customers can come into my home. It's come and go kind of celebration for them, and I ask them to bring their friends and let's just have a party. Let's enjoy each other. We play games, we have fun, we eat, have mimosas, have special tea, whatever they want. I want to pamper them. And having that appreciation of them and that celebration of them just builds our bond that much stronger. And another thing that I do, especially at Christmas time, is I handwrite out Christmas cards to every single one of my customers, thanking them and telling them how much I appreciate them and wishing them all the best for the upcoming year. And I do that for birthdays as well. So, you know, just those little simple things can make such a huge difference in our relationships.
That's great. Excellent. Excellent. Love that. You know, and the key thing what you're doing here, Michelle, is really building long-term relationship, right? And that then, you know, whenever they think of something, then, oh, there's Michelle.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Excellent. Anyone else?
I was thinking of a couple of my old silvers, the 20,000 in a month. I had a Thanksgiving weekend silver where we just, this woman had family in from everywhere. So we did rollouts on everybody, just had lots of fun with rollouts. So now she was one that sold retail sleep systems way back then. And another one was through Christmas time. The one woman was ready to have her second baby, and this silver needed to get done before then, which got the other one going. They both had 5-year-olds, and the 5-year-olds weren't real happy with how busy the moms were. So we made Christmas trees, and that was 21 clubs is what we were doing then. So they got ornaments, and every time, you know, mom had another appointment, was another ornament. And between the two little girls, which one was going to have 21 ornaments on the tree first got a star at the top. But in thinking back to those fun times and a deadline, and the deadline happened before New Year's Eve, and the deadline happened, you know, before the end of the month of November, even though it was a time of the year when most people would think it wasn't going to be done. And it's funny that you bring it up, because that's what I was thinking about. You know, what are we going to do now in these last 2 months? And earlier today on the Platinum Alliance call, there were some ideas. Bill Cottle mentioned on the December 9th power call that he was just going to have it very casual with food beforehand, and afterwards little gift giving ideas around while people are doing whatever the other order special is, to make it be a holiday fun, and having catalogs and so forth. So there are ways that we can put it around these events that we're doing as well, as you mentioned earlier, with the healthy shopping, inviting lots of neighbors over, and a lot of little teas. I really find that one-on-ones and one-on-threes and one-on-fours, where you really can relate, find out the why, have the conversation, and something to eat, really works well. And plugging them into all these other events that we already have, plug them into what's already there. So it is a good time of the year, and I think with the momentum that we have going right now.
Excellent. Excellent. Anyone else who wants to share?
I just wanted to comment, if I can, on Michelle's ideas, because such incredible proof of her connection with her customers when she was able to call those people, because she had built that relationship, and that's how she created her win for Team Kaizen. So I think that's really amazing example for us to follow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the things I got the idea from Barb Satterwhite. She has been mailing out the bigger water cards that Dave has, 100 of them for $10 or whatever, with thank you notes and reminders. And so I ordered extras, and I'm planning on doing earlier holiday cards with some thank yous, and taking in either a paleo bar or some samples, and really kind of the customer appreciation that we've learned more of in the past year, to distributors, to those that have, you know, just something special, and starting it earlier, and maybe with a personal note, particularly targeting the ones that are more interested in building a business, or just saying thank you for the loyal customers that have always been there.
And you know, and that's very good. And here we're talking about more about the customer side of it. So that's one way. And by the way, creating your own event is not only for the customer side of it, but also for the recruiting side of it, obviously. So it's really a matter of what is more appropriate. Suzanne is just pointing out, you know, there's the tax benefit before of the end of the year. Absolutely. Absolutely. This, you know, this is something that you would want to talk to people about it. Because there's really significant tax benefit to a home-based business that other self-employed professions don't necessarily have. So make sure that you are aware of that, you know, and so whether we do social event, gratitude event, you know, all of that, but also what special event do you do outside of, you know, the big event that's all happening. For example, there's the hour. Is it the power? No, the power call, or at the hour call? I can't remember. On for December the 9th, is what can you do between now and then that would lead to that, to having a group in your home, or they connect on their own from their home to leverage that call on December 9th. It's because it's not about inviting people to the 9th. It's what is happening between now and December 9th. You know, on one thing that I always mention is whatever events that we have, it's our job as leaders in NICAN, and everybody who's on that call is a leader, I really believe that, is to think ahead of the calendar. And what does that mean is we know that's the point of focus. December 9th is the point of focus if you don't have anything else in November. So what do I need to do between now and then to build up and take advantage of December 9th? So that's really what it is. It's, you know, it's not just about inviting for the 9th. That's too far. That's another month to go. So that's why we do in-home. That's why we do the one-on-one. Ideally, what you would want, you know, I would say is, you know, give yourself a challenge. You know, do you all have specific goals for November? You know, and I always say when I talk to goals about to my team, I say, you know, goals should include volume, clients, recruits. Why volume? Because we're getting paid on volume. Huh? So, I mean, new clients or ownership, because the ownership is about building that residual. It's about building that repeat business. That's really important. And recruits, because we are about building teams. So if we miss one of those 3 components in our monthly goals and yearly goals, we're actually not helping ourselves, because we're missing out on something that is really building business. Okay, I have some feedback. Okay, here we go. Okay, so, you know, and it's a matter of, you know, making goals that are real to you. You know, sometimes, you know, we know everything is possible, but the bottom line is it doesn't matter what's possible. What matters is what's relevant to you. What do you believe you are and confident you will do? Stretch yourself a little bit, but what is it? And then really look at it week by week. That's really important. A lot of time, I don't know if you relate to this, but we think, oh, I have a month to go, so I'm good. I have a month to go. And before we know it, the month end is there. And we say, oh my gosh, where did that go, right? Because we always underestimate the speed at which days go by. And very often we underestimate the speed at which we get response from people, or the speed at which people move to action. So always, you know, looking, this time of the year is so important, not only to close the year strong, but also to start to think the next 2 months is the foundation for the first quarter of 2018. It's not just the end of the year. It's the foundation for the first quarter of 2018 that becomes then the foundation for the end of 2018. So having those month-to-month goals that are in alignment with where you want to be a year from now, 15 months from now, is really important. And if you need help, that's when you work with your upline, that type of thing.
I like having gatherings with people that like to have in their DNA, like helping other people. Like, for instance, there's a lot of people that are passionate about Reiki, passionate about yoga, passionate about massage therapy. All of these people have in their background of helping people whichever way they can. So a gathering of those people where we discuss in common how we like to help people and how this gathering, and we come up with different ideas of what we're going to do to promote whatever we're passionate about.
It's great. And, you know, and common interest is important. But so the bottom line is there's so many reasons. Carol, I think it's you who has background noise. If I can ask you to mute yourself, that would be great. Thank you. For some reason,
more experience from Platinum Alliance today, since he mentioned that niche group of kind of holistic therapists. Bob Kelchner shared that he was talking to us in San Antonio about, he got the idea at Rotary of putting a program together for home-based businesses. Well, after hearing Mr. Kasuda in San Antonio, he got more excited. So he shared with us today a PowerPoint that he did inviting friends that had home-based business. They were working from home. He's a retiree. He's in that before the baby boom area. And so he invited several of his neighbors and friends over that already had their own home-based businesses. And he went through, and the idea, they had fun and food, and it was, he asked them for help. Like Mike had suggested, we should ask people for help. So he was asking them to come to look at his PowerPoint because of his home-based business, to get their input because of all the different home-based businesses that they had. And he said it was a real win-win, that the last few slides were talking about his. Well, they became intrigued with balance and the 5 pillars of health, and of course how healthy they both look, and just showed a little bit, what they sat on or tasted in the water in their wellness home. So now he has an interest. There are some that are interested in his home-based business, plus they gave feedback. And so now that he piloted it, he shared it with us, and he's going to modify it a little bit. But he put in that slide that Mr. Kasuda showed with the pre-baby boomers, whatever he called that generation, and the boomers and the Generation X and the millennials. And it was really cute. He used some cartoons. And out of that, he's planning now to have other events like that. So that is another niche group to get input and ask help from, that bringing them into your home and showing them your wellness home. So I thought that was a pretty creative approach, and he's pretty pleased with the results. And there was quite of an interest as he was sharing it today.
Absolutely. And, and that's why, on another call last week, we talked about, what is the people that you want to reach. I'm thinking about someone on my team, what's calling her, it's because she's of that age, it's the 60 plus. That's really where she is really, and she has quite definitely quite a neck
for bringing that up, Bernadette, because actually we were having these cocktail receptions or whatever, getting together. And before Mr. Kasuda, he was bouncing the ideas off of those that were sitting around him. And that's who he was thinking of, because in Rotary and in his circle of retirees, they sold a printing business is what they were in before. That's who he was thinking of, because people have skills and they're bored. But after Kasuda showed the 4 different categories, you presented up there, and even when he was presenting it to this niche of friends who had businesses that were supplementing their retirement from his age group, or hers, she's in the boomer group, what it gives people the thinking about is, well, you have children and you have grandchildren, and so when you see those other categories, may not be for you, but then they see who else that they might refer or think of.
I totally agree with you, Madeline, but what I'm saying is that we all have a natural audience around us. So it's about learning how to leverage that natural audience and network that we have and expanding beyond that. Obviously, that's very important. But, if one thing that I always say is I love to work with women. So which is why one of the reasons is my big push is women, because, and of a certain age and all that, because plenty of reasons. So I think it's everybody, as number of some of my team, and they're in the Gen X. So obviously their heart is in the Gen X group. So, and again, last week I was saying is, if our message is too broad, then it gets diluted. So if you're looking, because we don't talk to Gen X like we talk to baby boomers, and vice versa, it won't work. It goes back to the personality quadrant as well. You don't talk to a controller the same way you're going to talk to a supporter. It's not gonna work. So we need to adjust our communication to that. So it's all about understanding that. So this is great. Excellent. Anyone else want to add something?
I was at an event last week, and the speaker comes from a neuro-linguistic background, and she also talked about mirroring the person we're speaking with or to, whether it's even gestures or reflective listening, something they say, repeating it back in a way so they feel heard. And if we take that in, then we're naturally moving toward their quadrant. So that's another reminder.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Communication is everything. That's the bottom line, right? And communication is verbal, it's body language, it's energy, it's all of it. And we all know that the words are the least important in our communication, right? The most important is the body language, it's a facial expression, it's the energy we put in. That talks much more than the words. I remember at some point in time, it was in my early stage in Nikan, and I remember I was calling a prospect, and as soon as I hung up the phone, I said, my gosh, that was terrible. And what I mean is, what I said, I knew I was just babbling. I don't know what I said, but it wasn't good. And it didn't matter because the person loved what I communicated, not necessarily how I communicated, because I really believe it was really bad. But she just resonated completely with my message because it was the tone of voice, it was the passion, it was the conviction, it was we were listening, we were connecting, right? Again, and because if she had listened just to my words, I really believe it would have just done. I was done because I really felt it was a terrible phone call. And other times, how many times have we hang up the phone and say, oh my gosh, I was just right there. And then nothing happens with that person because it's just not what they were ready to listen to for whatever reason, right? So you're absolutely right, Dee. That also, that body language is extremely important. The body language and the energy is really, really important. Excellent. So with what we've discussed tonight, what I'd love to hear some of you is what are the one or two little things that maybe you've been reminded of that you're going to apply into how you're going to do your prospecting this week, this month, or the new idea you're going to implement this week, this month. Who would like to share that? Yes, Cheryl, go ahead.
What really hit me well was what you were saying about creating different events around different topics, because I was just trying to really wrap my head around what can I do to, create some activity with new people outside of NECAN, and just what you suggested there with the different type of parties and events. That was real aha, and that's what I'm going to work on.
Great. And by the way, I suggest that type of ideas or type of event, not to do it just because it's the end of the year. I would suggest that you do create something like this once a quarter, and take a different theme every time.
Yeah, that's great.
Reasons to do that once a quarter, right? And once you get really good at it, you'll do it once a month.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you.
Excellent. Who else? Yes, Yoko.
I would definitely, like you're saying, promote for the December 9th. In other words, combine what Michelle was saying as far as appreciation and gratitude. And I usually try to do a December gift thing, but it is better. Start early in November. Good ideas. Thank you.
Excellent. Wonderful. And by the way, if some people are disconnecting and feel that there's no business, more business for you. Right? So there's always that. We always need to look at this. There's always a balance in everything. So either we take the opportunity or we let it go by, right? Excellent. Anyone else?
I just want to say what was helpful for me, before San Antonio, I had several new prospects. And then in the little window before I left for Williamsburg, I had a few new ones. And then I have a you from Williamsburg trip. So as I was making my grid today and did some texting and some following up on, I managed to get through 4 of them today. My reflection has been what and how, so that there's improvement over the past. And this has been very helpful for that, thinking about who they are and how to follow up. And so the timing has really been good. And then also for my new Silver, she's been the quiet supporter for 4.5 years. And then all of a sudden made this decision. And while I was gone, long distance, you know, she really handled what needed to be handled. There were a few phone calls and whatever, but she handled it independently. And so now, today we didn't get together, but she asked about the option for Wednesday. So again, knowing that she's the supporter and I'm the controller, you know, that it was been very helpful for me to think ahead till Thursday to continue that launch, to help her and support her become a stronger buying Silver.
Excellent.
So it's been, the timing has been very helpful.
Very good. Anyone else? Yes, Carol.
So I've had a hard time just staying awake, but I did get things. I like the 4 quadrants, and that gives me a framework in terms of how I communicate and listening to people, you know, and discerning that, and that also in terms of gatherings and the themes that I might have the last 2 months. To integrate that. It's helpful.
Excellent. Excellent. Anyone else? No? We're good? Because in that case, we can close the call a few minutes early. You know, I'm glad that you got some nuggets. You know, it's just, we always need constant reminder. Always need constant reminder, because we do it for a while and then we forget, right? And then and the more we are aware of it, and the more we practice, the more skillful we become. You know, it's practice, practice, practice. I mean, you know, how do we become good at something? Well, by practice, practice, practice. I mean, there's no other. We're not born with that skill. We just learn. That's why it's called a skill. It can be learned, right? So it's just practice, 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 and not being afraid of, you know, making mistakes or not having enough great results. It's just a matter of getting started and doing that. Okay, but I'd love to add another. I think it would be really interesting is as you go through your month, you know, and you implement those little changes or ideas, ask yourself, how did that work? You know, what effort did I put in to make this happen? How many people did show up, or how did that impact my communication, my results? And then, you know, one thing that I always do myself, by the way, is at the end of each month, I always look at what it is that I did, what works. So then I'll do more of it. What is it that I did that maybe didn't work as much? Then I need to reevaluate it, stop it, or improve it. But I always do a self-assessment at the end of each month. Always. Not only for myself, for my team, but I always do that, because otherwise I will keep repeating the same behavior, expecting a different results. Right? Well, that's not going to work, right? So it's all about that, having that feedback that we give out to ourselves, but also we look at feedback through results. That's why goals and results are important. It gives feedback on the quality of the work that we do, and whether or not it's helping us grow and move forward. Okay, so that's when we talk about accountability. To me, accountability, it's feedback. That's really what it is. It's constructive feedback. While very often we think about accountability, oh my gosh, right? I'm freaking out here because I don't want to be accountable. But that's constructive feedback. To me, that's the way to look at it. Nothing more, nothing less, right? So on that positive note, I wish you a fabulous week and a fabulous month. Let's make big things happen for the month of November. let's have a lot of silvers happening here and there, everywhere. All right? Bye, everybody.